Are we live? Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, so here we are. Thank you very much for everybody who is tuning in. My name is Larry VP, Larry Villegas Perez, really, but everybody knows me as Larry VP. And this evening, August 28th, where we are remembering 57 years of the March in Washington, we are asking everybody to take a moment to just reflect not only on everything that has happened in this country, in our lives, and through this pandemic, but also where do we go from here? And today I am accompanied not only by my friend and business partner, Fernando Polti, who is running all the logistics of this call, by also by four amazing powerhouses, women from the community who work in the DMV area. And I don't want to take time of your voice to introduce yourself. I have Consuela Lopez, I have Monica Palacio, I have Tyler Chandler, and Keisha Allure. I have known them personally, and I cannot be more humble first for you to accept this invitation to talk about LGBTQ2 plus and all the other letters issues, but also how do we move forward working with our allies, which in this case is represented by our friend and always supporter Monica Palacio, who is a candidate for the city council at large. So with that said, and without further ado, I'm going to ask, just like I'm going to go alphabetically. So, Consuela Lopez, please tell us in 30 seconds who you are, and then I will call on the others, and we will continue this conversation. I'm ready for my happy hour with my Diet Coke, no ice. So, here I am. Welcome again to Washington, D.C., and our talk on LGBT issues and how to move forward with our allies. Here we go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Consuela Lopez. I'm originally a native from Nicaragua. I own a business here in Bethesda. I live in Washington, D.C. in Ward 3. I have lived in Washington, D.C. since 1983. So I've seen the city turn around multiple times. Um, I'm an openly transgender woman, as well as one of the original trans respect campaigns for the Office of Human Rights, DC Office of Human Rights. And yay! So I work with Monica Palacios on numerous projects and campaigns, and I'm just excited to be here with Larry, Taylor, and Monica. And let's just take this, conversation and go with it.
Thank you, Consuela. Keisha, well, we're gonna leave Keisha. She's leaving work. Maybe she's ready, maybe not. Taylor, jump in.
Absolutely, I'm ready, but
Oh,
okay.
you're right. Oh, Keisha's ready. Go, Keisha.
Yeah, so my name is Keisha Allure. A lot of people know me also as a Night with Deja Vu. I am a native Washingtonian. I'm from DC. I've been living here all my life. I'm a performing artist first. I own my own company. It's called New Law Entertainment, and I've been owning that for the CEO since 2006. I'm also a manager of a salon in DC. What else? I'm also the director of victim services and resilient development at Casa Ruby Community Center. And I'm also one of the advocates and the model of the Trans Respect campaign, as well as Consuela. So thank you so much, Monica. And you did run into me. We were right there on U Street. I was with a nephew and I was taking him to the farmer's market. Mm-hmm. And he was like, why don't you have any shoes on, Keisha? I was like, because a lot of times when I'm shopping, whether it's in a market or in Whole Foods, I'm barefooted. And a lot of people don't know that. So, but yeah, you did see me and it was great seeing you out there and we support you and it's great seeing Taylor. And yeah, so thank you again. And I apologize that I'm not physically there, but trust me, I am very present.
Don't worry, we are maintaining social distancing, but we're still socializing. So
Yes,
Keisha, welcome. Yes.
Yes,
So
this is
thank
the
you
new
for being
norm
here
now.
too.
Thank you. This is the new norm, right, Suela? Like this is you. I'm gonna get off, but this is probably my ninth meeting or discussion today. So yeah, so I'm good. But great to
Gotcha.
see everyone. And yeah.
Taylor, your turn.
Hello, everyone. I'm Taylor Chandler. I moved here in 2013 as a sign language interpreter working at the White House, on the Hill, in the Pentagon. I slowly decided that I wanted to get into advocacy and activism. I worked at Casa Ruby for a year, worked from the bottom on the way up. And then I went off and now I'm the transgender health coordinator for us, helping us people into living. I'm also part of the marketing team of Capital Pride Alliance. I am the DC chair for Flux AIDS Healthcare Foundation. And I have a book coming out next month called Life Trips. So shameless plug.
Nice, nice. No, listen, there is no shame in our game, so go for it. Yes.
And I love DC. I love everything about it. And I love our community. And I want us to be represented in the people that make decisions and have control of the money.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Taylor. Yes. Also, I want to take, okay, so even though this is a conversation for everything that we're saying, I definitely, Fernando, I hope that you are behind your camera because I'm going to ask you, since you are a supporter of this cause through Global Wizards, to also introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Fernando Polti. I'm from Global Wizards. My company focuses on creating digital presence, and we do software development as well. And of course, I support this cause, and I support many causes, and more now than ever, because we know the pain that all the community, all the people having right now. I feel that now is when we need to take action, not only say words. And these kind of things, like this kind of event is action. So thank you very much, Larry. Thank you very much to all, to do this, because I am part of the people that you are fighting for. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Fernando, from Global Wizards. And now the person that we actually brought to the table, and this is a great thing that is not to put you on the spot, but for you to hear. And as you have been one of our members and loyal people in our community, we want you to listen, but I want you to also introduce yourself and go for that shameless plug as well.
I'm muted. Hey, everybody. Gracias.
Yes, go for it.
Gracias, Larry. It's great to be with you all. I'm honored to be among you. And I am very devoted to the LGBTQ communities and to understanding the LGBTQ experience because it is ever evolving. But so are humans. We're ever evolving. We're changing. We're growing. And the sad thing is when we stop growing and we stop changing. So a little bit about me. I am here to listen and learn and to better understand the challenges facing all the communities right now. But I'm originally from Colombia, South America. I came to the US when I was 2. I grew up in New York City on the Lower East Side. And I came to DC in 1990 to go to law school because I wanted to change the world. And I'm very proud to say that I have changed the world over the last 30 years. So I've worked on many front lines in DC: housing, education, the prison system, the district government. I was the director of the Office of Human Rights for 6.5 years, where I had the pleasure of working with all of these wonderful women and with Larry. And Larry and I have been just soul siblings for the last few years, and we didn't even know it. So I am just so honored and thrilled to be here. First and foremost, as your ally, your sister, and also because, I have a very dear member of my family who I know he was never accepted by his parents, and he was adopted by my mother, and he's my gay brother. And I know what that experience is like and how devastating it is. We've been friends for 32 years now. So my commitment is deep, 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 and I will fight always. There's no if, maybe, later when we can, if the conditions are right. No, we have to fight now because people are dying, people are suffering, people are excluded, and we need to know that and always say that DC is a safe place for the LGBTQ communities, and I'm going to fight that for the rest of my life.
Thank you, thank you very much. It is important that let me just say a few words about who I am. My name is Larry Villegas Perez, as I said, but everybody knows me as Larry VP. My background is in public health, activism, mental health, and now I am very seriously getting into hypnotherapy because I have been a hypnotherapist for like 2 years now. But I looked at it and I worked in it. So look into my eyes, and then you're gonna be a happier person. So exactly, right? But what it is important is that even though I myself have gone through a process of redefining who I am, because I just came out of COVID-19 and some days are better, some days are not. I have been supported by so many people, but there are others who are still suffering, have been impacted right now, and there is so much to be done. With that said, I just finished my own business called Larry VP Solutions, and then we'll talk about that later. But right now, I want to hear from my sisters who can tell me, like, what do you think are the main issues right now within the LGBTQ community? And I know that we are not representing everybody from the community right now, but I brought the ones that usually are at the end of the line, the ones that usually get the phone call 3 months later. I want them to be the first one in this conversation because I want to learn and be a better ally and community person. So, ladies, anyone can jump in. This is an organic conversation. But the first thing that somebody asked me was like, why do we need to talk about the LGBT community? So,
Well, I'd like to jump in. You mentioned DC being a safe place. And what does that mean in terms of defunding the police and 8 to abolition? Because MPD targets trans women of color. It targets the homeless youth that are LGBTQ. And that money could be truly resourced differently to build these communities up, educate, give them skills. And, you know, there's a lot of trust building for people that are the color of my skin, for people that are Black and of color. And I want to see a police force that, to me, police represents racism in its worst form. And I want to know what your thoughts are on that.
So you're bringing to the table the fact that the police perpetrates or perpetuates some part of the violence, the racism, the discrimination, etc., etc. Okay, okay. So Monica, do you have already in your plan or conversations with the mayor of where we're going with that in DC?
Right. So for the last 15 years, I have worked on these issues of racism and racist policies and practices in law enforcement, both in the DC area and in other cities. And the culture of law enforcement in this country is one of, you know, basically terrorism and punishing people when there's a crisis. So we need to change the culture of law enforcement. It has to be transformed. When we say defund the police, I think, having looked at that platform through organizations like Black Lives Matter and Black Swan Academy in the city, I think what we're really looking for is a new model of trusted state support for someone in crisis, right? If someone is being attacked, if there's a domestic violence issue, if someone has been hurt, we need more options, not just a guy in a uniform with a gun, right? We need mental health care. We need behavioral health care, drug treatment. We need to help families in crisis. So there has to be a transformation of the whole model of support for our communities who need either crisis help or long-term support services. We can no longer send a patrol car to every problem. So that's the way I see it. And we need a zero tolerance policy. there's no more qualified immunity. If an officer is involved in abusing power, one strike and you're out. Okay. I think there's too much forgiveness and too much negotiation. Well, you know, he's new, he's young, he didn't mean it, he was scared, he didn't know. That's it. We're done. We're done. We have to have a zero tolerance policy with local law enforcement.
Thank you. Thank you. Keisha, now we see you loud and clear and ready. Okay. So
Yeah.
if it is very important to talk about like the police, we are in a very different situation here in Washington, D.C. because yes, sometimes we see the police and we don't see the police that is friendly, but we see the uniform, we see the gun, but we see our experience, what happened to me before, and that I associate the police with that experience. So Consuela or Keisha, do you have something else to add?
So I'll go. And I'll let, you know, Keisha's been a longtime friend of mine since we were like 15. So I've seen the city change, Monica, and there's three things that I would like to discuss, but I know the victim part, the crime, I'm gonna leave that to my sister Keisha. But the two things that come up to mind at the top, at the front of my line is employment, right? For trans women, period. Black transgender women that get the brunt of the violence and the discrimination that happens in the city. And you know, I know that the DC office, well, the Human Rights Office, they had so many great campaigns that help towards our community, but sometimes I feel it's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, because you know, it's like the trans resumes, right? It's a it shows that more than 60% of businesses in Washington, D.C. blatantly discriminate towards transgender individuals just through a form of resume. But think about the average transgender individual who doesn't even graduate high school due to bullying, due to transitional situations where you become into a survival sex worker, you go into survival mode, which all that comes along with crime, you know, the drug use, all that. But living in Washington, D.C., growing up with predominantly Black trans women, being, you know, living in Northwest DC, hanging out in Southwest, hanging out in Ward 8, hanging out in Ward 7, it is completely different over on the east of the river for Black trans women. And I know that the council members, I had conversations with them not even less than a year ago about, we know what happens, because one thing that, and I sit on various boards throughout the city. One of them being Women Walker Clinic. I used to be at the mayor's office of LGBTQ affairs. So I've been around the block. I have the information. I have I've gathered enough information that I even spoke to Larry before. I said, Larry, can I just go free, right? And we know exactly what's going on, Monica, in Ward 7 and 8. How come is it that the STD rate, right, is steadily rising in Ward 7 and 8? But if you're a transgender woman, whether you be Black, Latino, or white, in Ward 3 or Ward 1 or 4, you know, it just doesn't happen at that rate, right? The employment part, when I said to talk about the trans resumes, the discrimination, you know, I thought about that and I said, you know what, that trans resumes, even though it was a great campaign, it really didn't address the issue, because I think when a transgender woman goes, and I can go and I have a skill set, but if I'm transparent and I go to a job interview, what does it stop the employer just from that moment, just in their head, not on paper, not in the resume, not in the hiring, of saying, you know what, I'm not going to hire this person. It can never be proven. The only thing that could be proven, and I think that's why the LGBTQ Supreme Court, you know, it's another Band-Aid on the bullet one, because, oh yeah, it protects us to get, you know, it protects us for discrimination against jobs, but we don't have the jobs. They're not even letting us in the door. You know, I'm a business owner, but I learned how to become a business owner because I needed to hire my own, right? I've literally had doors closed at me from an artist point of view, where I'm a hairstylist and I go into an area like Bethesda, like Chevy Chase, like, you know, in Montgomery County or even Upper Northwest, and I've had those doors closed on me because I am an openly transgender woman. And it can't be proven that they didn't hire me because of for whatever reason, but that discrimination is blatant, right? Like, and what does Monica plan to do in the future for transgender women of color and, you know, and all trans women to ensure employment, right? Because we had the Project Empowerment. At our last meeting, I told them that Project Empowerment didn't work because even though trans women went through the training program, at the end of the day, I think maybe if and I don't have the correct data because I did ask for it, but they just didn't have it. But I know these girls personally, the ones that have gone through these job training program. And I gotta say, if 100 trans women went through this job training program, 5 got hired. So that shows you the other 95, which goes back into the 89% in the DMV, trans women are survival sex workers, right? And you think of a big number like 89%. And then I switch it around and I'm like, don't look at that number. Look at who their customers are. Who are their customers? They're not Monica. They're not the Monicas. They're not the Larrys. They're the same people who are putting these legislation, these laws, these orders into place, are the same people who are not trying to give us an opportunity. Now, I brought it to one of the council members' idea where I said, you know, I believe we got to meet people where they're at, you know, and yeah, I've come a long way from being in Washington, D.C., but the only way that I was able to be really successful being a transgender woman, dropping out of high school, immigrant, woman, trans, Latina, was to get a skill set, right? And my skill set happens to be hair. It was beauty. So I think about it, even though beauty at this point, I would still have an issue going into a heterosexual environment and people are going to just, it's not widely accepted. However, I don't understand how you won't hire us as administrative assistants, but you'll hire us to do your hair and your makeup. Right?
So, Consuela, you're bringing a very good point, and it goes piggybacking with tailors, which is safety, 1. 2, I want you in my environment, but not too close. And also, are you passable? And that is a completely different conversation that we have to address within the community. I remember before I give you the time, Monica, that there were studies conducted where they sent people that looked similar, some trans, some didn't, some more passable than others, to apply for the same jobs, to apply for housing, to apply for opportunities. And at least 10 times more, the person who was passable, the person who wasn't, the person who was more normal looking got the opportunity. Whereas the others, will call you or would tell you definitely, oh, we have an apartment around the corner where it's more quiet. What it really means is when people are not going to see you, so you are not going to be a matter of complaint. So Monica, I give you the floor.
Wow, there's so much to say. I think, Consuela, you're right, that educating people and raising the issues is the first step, but we really need to do more and invest more. And that's one of the reasons I left to run for DC Council, because it's not enough to put up posters and say we have laws, there are protections, but we actually have to help people rebuild their lives. And I know I was very frustrated with the Department of Employment Services, and I will say it loud and clear. I don't think many of those job training programs work. I don't think the people that run them know what they're doing. And I think, and having listened to transgender women of color, I sat down with 30 or 40 women last year, both at HIPS and Casa Ruby. The two things they wanted were a chance to work and a place to live. It's that simple. And when you have a job, you have healthcare. And when you have healthcare, you can take care of your needs, whether you're a cisgender woman like me or a transgender woman. Everyone needs those 3 basic fundamental things in life, right? A safe place to live, a job, and healthcare. And that's what they wanted. And I think that I was very frustrated when those programs were like, oh, okay, well, maybe we can come up with a small grant. No, we don't want a small grant. We need transgender women of color to be at the center of the program. You know, we want them to be successful just like everyone else needs a chance to be successful. So what I would do is certainly rebuild a program that supports transgender women, which includes housing. It includes a paid fellowship within the government, like we do with college students, you know, and we do it with graduate students, and we do it for other people. Those are affirmative action programs, right? Those are programs that give somebody a boost to get into the government and get a great job. I think we need a track for transgender women of color, just like we do for young people. You know, everybody deserves a chance, like you said, Consuela, to learn a new skill, to be independent, to have dignity, and to be safe while they're working. And that's something that I would be very much committed to, because the Department of Employment Services has money. Okay, they had money. Their budget was 10 times bigger than my budget at the Office of Human Rights. You know what they would do? They would transfer money to my agency and say, here, Monica, it's your problem. And it would be too little, too late. Okay, and I'm tired of not only transgender women of color, but women of color, immigrant women, and I call it the hyper invisible communities that have to live in the shadows to survive. We can't accept that anymore. We need to be at the table and fighting for what we need at the top of the list. Not, oh, well, si queda algo, right? If there's a little bit left at the end of the year, we'll write you a check and, you know, you can be happy and go away. So that would be my priority.
Thank you, thank you. And like I said before, this is Monica. I am so glad that, you know, I know you, I know your work, and I know your passion for this community in general, DC. And you could be sitting down at the Office of Human Rights, getting your salary, working from home, you know, getting complaints from time to time, but you decided to come out and take charge. And listen, I should be listening right now to who run the world? Girls. This is the time for women who are powerful like all of you to take charge, not only of yourselves, your business, but our community. And with that, I want to hear from Keisha, because I know that the work Keisha does is super, super important with people who have been victims. But Keisha, I would like you to tell us, like, what is it that you are doing and what you think that we can do better?
And you look gorgeous in that poster. You look gorgeous.
Of course it does.
Why, thank you. I was actually trying to search for that photo. This moment right here is very important to myself and transgender women in all over the country, but specifically African American transgender women who live in Washington, D.C., who are from Washington, D.C., who want to be a part of D.C. When we chronicled this moment right here, it happened so fast. And I remember it like last week, you know, Suela coming to the salon while I was working, coming to get me to represent. Now, I probably did not grasp it at, you know, and take it all in at the moment, but I knew it was a moment. And then, you know, a few people called me and told me, hey, the photo's up in Ward 8 on MLK, where you grew up. And then it resonated. And so I fast forward, there's so many different ways, Monica, that you can approach how you are going to deliver whatever, well, not saying whatever, but deliver your product to Washington, D.C., to your demographic, which is it African American transgender women? Is it the LGBT community? Is it just only trans women of color? Whatever it is, I feel like it's important for you to understand exactly what it is trans women, where they come from, African American trans women of color in DC, what they derive from and what they have to go through, hence become. Take myself, I transitioned very early in my transition, very early in my childhood as a human being first, right? And looking at it, I'm still healing from, you know, a lot of the doors that I had to walk through, or not that I had to, but back in the 90s or back in those times, and not having a coach or someone who knew what I was going through as a human being, as a teenager before adolescence, 18, all of those things are very important to what a person, i.e. a Black transgender woman, becomes. And so I think it's very important that you understand that it's historical trauma that people who are transgender or who are living their lives in a dysphoria, what we come from. And I am just probably one of a million girls who are a product of, and I think you quoted, shadows of survival. Mm-hmm. I am just a product, one. I'm sure there's many. Tall, 6 feet, well, 5'11", but I wear heels and all that and hair, who are still living in dysphoria, but I'm healing thanks to the, you know, the survival, the shadows of survival, thanks to Casa Ruby, thanks to my family, thanks to Ward 8, thanks to the hood, right? So I think, not taking a lot of time, but I think we should really dissect the historical trauma of an African-American transgender woman trying to live, or not trying.
Did we miss somebody?
Did we miss someone? No. Yeah, I think it's just important that we understand where those women or we come from, right, Suela? Where we come from. Consuela grew up. She come from another country, but she still had to grow up as a young woman in her 20s, 30s, and here we go. Myself, I was born in DC, Ward 8, Stanton and Alabama Avenue. I still live in Ward 8. I work in Ward 8. My girlfriends are in Ward 8. I still go, I don't date, well, I wear a long skirt, but I still go barefooted in the wherever I go. And that's just a part of where I come from. And so when you speak of trans women of color being employed in Washington, D.C., and embracing human rights in the city and things of that nature, we need to pretty much do a little bit more comprehensive research. One, the historical trauma of African-American trans women of color, whether they're just moving here 20 years ago and what they had to go through, or if they were born and raised, where they come from, what is what their upbringing was like, and what their shadow of survival was like, right? So there's a lot of different ways, and I think you have a lot of support. And I can speak for myself. I support you. Consuela has known me. She's known me since I was a teenager. I met Suela probably, I'll say, fresh into a year of Keisha being born. And Keisha was born on 4th of July in 1993. And so, yeah, not my human body. I was born April 24th. But, you know, I tell the women in my support groups, I don't know about y'all, but Keisha was born, So in 1993, you know, I didn't, hey, there was no manual, there was no Casa Ruby, but there was Consuela, there was my family, and there was just, I guess, the light. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Keisha,
like,
you are bringing a very important topic. I clearly remember I prepared a mental health uh, presentation on gender dysphoria, and I was in a room with not less than 30 transgender men and women, mostly women. And I was there prepared for with my PowerPoint and everything because that's what I was going to do. And they took me sideways, south, north, and left immediately because there were other issues to talk about. There was the healing, there was the story, there was the trauma. So I closed my laptop and I just listened because at that moment there was no presentation, there was no like, oh, first stage, or how do you qualify. No, it is just listen. And that is one of the things that I'm experiencing in this call as well. Yeah, people may have questions, people may have sent me text messages or so about the campaign, this and that and the other, but I think that we still have a way to go because we need to listen. Not everybody's on the same level, of course, because, for example, Taylor is working with HRC and another group of like organizations, national, this visibility. Consuela has her own business and has to adapt to the pandemic. And I am sure that Keisha also has a lot to work to do with the clients she works with, because now she may not be able to see them face to face, but it's all phone, video, etc. But Consuela, you wanted to say something?
So no, I wanted to off of what Keisha was saying as far as like historical trauma. Transitioning in Washington D.C. in 1992, people don't understand. Like, I always explain this, and it took me a long time to understand this, Monica. Like, and I'm just gonna keep it as real and as simple, as straight to the point as it is. It's horrible that the color of your skin makes you more marketable or more hireable or more desirable. In some cases, it also lets you get away with murder, right? And when I say that, meaning here I was 15 years old, right? 15 years old, living in DuPont Circle, Northwest DC. I didn't have an issue of where I was going to lay my head that night. I didn't have an issue of food. My mother worked. My dad worked. I had a roof over my head. The only thing that I knew once I became an adult was that I had to be home before the light, before it started. I remember elementary school, junior high school, the lights on the city, the streets, I had to be home, blah, blah. And then, of course, the older I got, I would sneak out the house to go try to like dress up. And it was like a custom, Monica, where, I remember the first time I dressed up as a woman, not really pointing out my dysphoria, right? Not understanding how I felt once I put on a wig, once I put on a skirt, right? I didn't understand why that made me feel so good, right? Or made me feel whole. I didn't even understand that it made me feel whole. I couldn't even understand that in my brain first before the next thing that took place was, oh, you're dressed up now. Now let's take you to the strip. Come on. And this is where we all go, right? And I mentioned this to Keisha. I mean, this is it. Like, Keisha and I grew up together. Taylor, Taylor's a very good friend of mine, but I didn't grow up with Taylor, right? I didn't grow up on the streets of DC with Taylor, right? So I really, the only person that can relate is Keisha. Like, here we would go to the strip, to street walk, but it wasn't because I was in survival mode. I got put in survival mode. My thing was, I could be out until 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock on the weekend. Lord knows what my mom knew that I was doing, was she's probably going to see this and now she's going to be like, she's going to be like, oh, really? Right? But I think about this because then I say to myself, is this like it's like a plan. It's like, you do this, you do that, you do this. Ignore your feelings, ignore the dysphoria. You got to go straight into survival mode, because then you need a roof over your head, because then you worry about what people are going to think. It's like this whole cycle, right? Not once being able just to sit back, relax, right? As a teenager in Washington, D.C., to say, you know what? I'm trans. Wow. If I would have known that at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18, I almost guarantee you that my life would have went in a different direction. Now, mind you, I'm not bad off, right? But I have struggled. I have grinded all my life to get to where I am, by struggling and by having a strong role model figure. That is my mother, right? That my mother said, honey, you can be whatever you want to be. You can be trans, you can dress up one day, not dress up the other day, do whatever you want to do. But what you're going to do is be successful. We didn't come to this country for you to go and be a streetwalker, right? My parents didn't trek along the deserts of Central America into America to be able to just, come into this country. We entered into America in 1980, right? And I just recently, when was it, in November of 2019, I flew to Ecuador to talk about trans issues and immigration, right? And I talked about it, and the DC government was there, or the president's government was there, and they were like, oh, you don't have a problem as long as you enter legally, right? But how are we going to enter legally if A, trans women don't even get the same job opportunities that other people have? B, think about it, women already have a tougher time in just employment already. And we think about it, like, how do you expect for a trans woman to flee her country, right, to come here, legally, illegally, however you want to call it, and have that dream of survive, of making something better of your life, right? It's the same as if you were born here, right? I'm up to 15, nothing ever stopped me from going to school, from going to college, from doing that. All that was paid for, right? FAFSA, all you had to do was apply for a grant. The money was there, right? But it's the education and it's teaching us in that direction to say, you know what? You can transition, you can do this, but what you were not going to have to do, which for centuries, I don't know how long, I'm not saying centuries, for decades, it was always make that left, make that left, make that left onto survival mode, whether it's escorting, survival sex work, whether it is committing fraud, whatever lifestyle that comes with being a transgender woman, into that survival mode so you could be able to survive. But that's for people who don't have that bed, right? Don't have the food. What made it so different, right? I had the bed, I had the food, but I still went out there. I still was hurt. I've been stabbed. I've been punched in the face, right? I had my jaw broken just for being transgender in ward 7 or 8, right? But if I were in ward 3, right, I can curse the police out, and I'm in the right. They won't touch me. They won't harm a hair on me, right? And I'm
not so sure, but I hear what you're saying.
I'm not saying I'm a person. Yeah. No, that's not. Yeah. But I'm being real.
Yeah. So, Consuela, you are touching on something, and I don't mean to interrupt you, mm-hmm. But I cannot stop thinking about the pyramid of Abraham Maslow hierarchy of needs. And the very first one is the physiological needs, water, sleeping, food, even sex. And we need to start working with our communities in a way that they go beyond this bottom line to more access to education, to more access to safety and security, to more access to self-esteem. You said it. You didn't go to the strip just to, do the same business or, get a $20 bill here and there.
I did do it. No, I did it.
That's another conversation.
Okay,
But
well,
hey,
I mean, it's the
but
A. That's the history, though, Larry. That's what I'm
yes,
trying to say. That it's
yeah,
always been that way.
yeah.
It's time. How are we going to change it, right? Because all the resources are there.
So,
All the
but
resources are there.
but let me just say this. So, okay, so you went, one day is 20, one day is 40, one day is 60, whatever, right? But look at you now. Look at Keisha now. Look at Taylor now. So we need to not only heal, because that is a process that we cannot deny, but also show people that it can be done, that you can, finish high school, finish, you know, 2 semesters at the university, finish your hair training or your dieting coaching or your speaking engagement or so, and get paid for talking about the experience that you had, so you can actually be respected. Because that's one of the things that I see. I used to walk with, with Ruby, with you, with so many people on the street, but to me, walking around on the streets with somebody who looks different than me, whatever that means, right? Or even transgender women of color, youth, adults, etc. For me, it's such a natural thing, second nature. Who gives a freak? You don't pay my taxes, you don't pay my home, so why do you care about what I look like? However, I experience how people look at the ones that I was walking with, and I was like, why are you looking at us? And not everybody. And I can just imagine having that thought 24/7. That just because I am not passable, just because I don't belong here, I shouldn't be walking around here. So we who are not having the same experience, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender guys who have an easier way, but that's another conversation too. We all need to become the allies of our transgender sisters of color, which at the end, we're all of color, whatever color that is, but we're all part of that minority. Now, at us helping us, Taylor, how does that work?
Um, we
If you want
you
to go
have
there,
to
you
be
can go
black or
wherever you want to
color.
go. Yes.
Most we cater to people of color because they're predominantly under cared for, undervested, and it started out as a holistic healing for people living with HIV, and it's evolved to an incorporated 501c3 that now provides access for people living with HIV to live a normal life, because it's not a death sentence like it was in 1985. It's and it's preventable. You can go on PrEP. We offer so many different programs. The thing that I heard Larry say, and I think about my two sisters on the panel, is we may be together now, but why couldn't we have been together at 15? Why couldn't our life have been wonderful at 15? Why couldn't we have transitioned after birth, gone on hormones, been on blockers, never had to shave, was accepted at school, no one knew our business. And then we turned 18 and whatever our goals were, we accomplished them and went on in life like anybody else. The difference is it's always a fight. It's always a struggle. And organizations like Us Helping Us traditionally have catered to men having sex with men. When they hired me, we're now going in a direction of a transgender initiative because the data is incorrect. You can't, we're not men. And to say that is beyond insulting. It's just like the government doesn't recognize us as female, so why should the world? Our own government doesn't give us rights or protections because they don't see us as human beings. So why would anybody else? So on a local level, Monica, I beg and plead of you to make that different. I implore you to have someone with a 30% skill set that's trans, of color, and give them that other 70%. And when you train them up, if they want to spread their wings and fly, great, but offer them a job, offer them sustainable work. You know, I don't want to get on the subject of how expensive it is to live in DC for everybody, but they need a chance. We all need a chance. We deserve a chance. Me, Consuela, and Keisha have gone through more shit, more crap in our lives than probably 100 people put together. It shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't need organizations like Casa Ruby and us helping us to pick up where the government's falling short and not giving us services and not showing us how to maneuver through them. It shouldn't be a minefield to get my birth certificate, to get an ID, to get hormones, to get food, to get Medicaid, whatever it is. It should be an easy path, and it's not, especially when you're of color.
Thank you, Taylor. I think you've all made excellent points, and I appreciate your trust and your sharing your stories and your experiences, because I know it's tough. I know it's very painful. But you're right. I think that, young people need that support at an early age. So so their challenges are just like everybody else. I want to get a job. I want to go to school. I want to have my own apartment, as opposed to, can I stay alive when I walk down the street? That shouldn't be the fundamental question anymore. So I agree with that. And I pledge to be your ally in fighting to make sure we work younger and younger with people, just to lighten the mood a little. I have an 11-year-old boy, and he has a close friend. And when they were about 4 hanging out together, his mom asked a friend, we were there, and said, so, do you have a girlfriend at school? Because that's the automatic question the little boy, little boys get asked. And he said, I'm not sure if I like boys or girls yet. And we were just like, oh, yes, we are on the right track. We are on the right track. He knows he gets to choose. He's not in a box. He's not going to be punished. You know what I mean? There was so much liberation that you have, opened the door to. So I hope that you don't think any of your suffering has been in vain, because I do think that we are learning the right lessons for our young people. And we have to keep doing that. We have to break out of the pink, blue, boy, girl, binary all the time and give humans a chance to be who they are.
Thank you. Thank you. I think, Monica, you are on the right track. Your trajectory, even though you're not a comet, but you're a woman, comet. Yes. In the Office of Human Rights, and as a mother, as a DC resident, as a human rights lawyer, gives you a lot of knowledge and strength to actually be able to manage these matters, these issues, these topics. And I know that the world is ending outside of where we are right now, because there is rain and this and that and the other. And I want to also be respectful of people's time, because I know that some of you are going to a real happy hour, right, Consuela? So anyways, no naming anybody, but I want to say first, thank you. Yeah, right. I want to say first, thank you. Thank you to Taylor. Thank you to Keisha. Thank you to Consuela. I know all of you personally. I have seen your work. I have experienced your worth and the benefit that you have brought to my personal life when we have worked together or we have done things together in the community. And I want to say that as a guy, as an immigrant, as a Latino, as a, I don't know where I am on the rainbow because sometimes it changes, but as a person of the rainbow, and I think that we have a lot of work to do to bring our sisters closer together, like by closer to us in a way that is real. And although it is bullshit, literally, that I have to say this because we should have been together from the very get-go, right? We
Yes.
should be having this conversation. We should all be one powerful mass. But this is why we have this. So we can hear Taylor tell her story. We can hear Keisha, thank you, telling your story. And Consuela, definitely. You are role model. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And that's the reason why you are here. And Monica is here to listen because I had the experience of being a richer person because of my contact with you. And I want anybody who is listening to have the same experience. And with that, I'm going to give the opportunity of a minute to each one of you for a final message, a final shameless plug, whatever you want to say, because this is a safe environment. And Consuela, I hope your mom is not going to watching that you were escaping the house after midnight because that's going to get you in trouble. So
We were all escaping around
I
midnight.
know,
My,
I know.
my story. Listen, let me say this. My story is such that my mom knows everything about me. Not everything, but you know, she knows exactly how I grew up. But with that minute, I just want to say, Monica, that you know, being in Washington D.C. since 1992, I've seen a lot of council members come in and out. The word trans wasn't even really said until about 20 years ago. Not even, you know, it was. I knew I remember at the age of 15 seeing the first group of trans women that I knew personally on the Washington Post. It was huge. It was big. It was Mimi, Tracy, and Puffy. These are the original trans girls of Washington D.C. They took the heterosexual, the cisgender, you know, by storm, and that was the first time that it was ever put on paper or out that trans people existed, right? So with that fight, you know, that we hurdled along on the way, and you know, and even though Ruby Corrado's not here, she's also been part of that movement within the council members, and you know, and how she learned how to advocate for our community, you know, and I think her opening up the door for me and us opening up the door for other people, like what Keisha said, is that, you know, I went across that street and I grabbed Keisha and I said, Keisha, you're coming with me to Casa Ruby. Come on. You're my friend. You know, this is not going to be Casa Ruby, which is an all Latino place. It's going to be, like Larry said, we have to come together as people of color before we can move forward, right? But Monica, I'm going to say this, you know, I've seen a lot of council members going into office and they promise communities, you know, or not promise, you know, they say, we'll work with you, we'll do this. And some of the previous, not just council members, but mayors that I've seen come in and out of office, you know, some have delivered and some don't ever give us the call back, right? I don't want that to be for you, Monica. I support you. I am on your side. I am going to vote for you, but I don't want to be let down. Because now, us having a personal relationship, right? I'm not that little 18-year-old girl that lived in DuPont Circle. I've established my life. I've established connections. I've established Larry, Taylor, Keisha, you. I knew you before this, right? I've known you for years. I know you, and now I'm gonna hold, you know, I'm gonna hold you up to your to a promise that you'll say, Consuela, I'm gonna do my best to allow people to see us in a different way. So I support you. I just, you know, let's hope this works out well in our favor. I think we've come a long way, but we've got a long way to go. And Monica for all this seed.
All right.
Thank you, Consuela. I won't let
Keisha.
you down,
Oh,
sister.
sorry.
I won't let you down.
Yeah, I think,
Keisha, you got your minute. Oh, even though
yeah,
Consuela got like, she pulled a ruby and then she took like 4, but that's okay.
it's okay. It shows that
We're
she's
in a
very,
safe environment, a safe
yeah,
place. Yes.
it shows that she's very passionate about
Mhm.
this movement. She's coming from a very she's a teacher, you know, and we're a few years apart, but I think I was mature enough to to keep holding her hand and maybe not go in every direction, but to really understand, okay, an older trans woman is doing these things. I'm doing great things, but I'm still in high school, but she's, you know, she's different. She's doing this. So it was great. So I think this time is great. DC is at a place where doors are opening and people are responding or not to our community. And so, you know, I'm not going to say I'm going to you know, I'm going to be looking at you with a lens to do what you say. No, you already know. You hear the stories. I would advise chronicling a story more comprehensive so that you can understand maybe a backstory so that you can then soar with your story. But with this panel, you have enough. You have Larry, you have myself, Taylor, you have Swayla, like, and that is so rich. You have the raw and uncut, like, oh my goodness, right? So I just say, just go for it. And to see you like standing in the middle on U Street, like honestly, I didn't even know what you were doing. Like until I walked up on you and I saw your supporters and everybody had your, you know, they had all your material and stuff. And then I said, oh, okay. But you saw me, I was shopping, you know, so that was great. So to see that you're on U Street, you know, and it's just great. So all I can say is that I support you, we support you, and just thank you for like this movement, right? Yeah.
Thank you, Keisha.
No, and thank you too, Larry. Like just thank you for everything. I don't know if I've even touched on just thank you for just facilitating my growth just with victim services. And now I direct the whole program. And, you know, we have 2 offices and we have a spinoff, which is the Resilience Project, and it's going great. And I'm so glad it's raining because all the plants that we, you know, it's just going good. So thank you, Larry, for just yeah, and okay, I'm gonna mute it because this is very emotional.
Thank you, Keisha. Yes.
You're so
Yes,
cute.
it is very emotional.
Taylor.
Monica, thank you so much for taking this time to be with us. You've heard 3 stories, but I can assure you there's thousands more in the district that are just like ours or worse. We need money. Casa Ruby, Wanda Alston Foundation, Smile, us helping us. We need to operate above grassroots capability. We're Black and Latino-led organizations that deserve the money of the Ryan Whites, of the Elton Johns. So help us get there because we can do the work. We can make it possible for those young people to not have to go through these things we've gone through. Sex work, there's nothing wrong with it. I believe in sex positivity, but it should not be a rite of passage growing up trans.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Taylor. Yes. And I'm going to do a breathing exercise. And usually we should not, let me see. Should I do the breathing exercise and then give you the floor, Monica, or should you have the floor and then I do the breathing exercise?
You're the
Because
boss.
Hmm?
You're the boss.
Okay, so then I'm gonna give you the floor, and then I'm gonna close with a breathing exercise for 1 minute. So you can participate, and anybody who's watching can participate as well. Yes.
Fantastic.
No hypnotizing.
No hypnotizing.
Right, exactly, Taylor. You took the words right out of my mouth.
You would never know.
Well, I've had so much fun. It's been so wonderful to be with all of you. I'm honored, and thank you for taking the time to be with me and to share everything that you did. I just want to say that, you know, it's tough to be a woman. It's tough to be Latina and do this, but you give me courage. You give me strength to keep fighting. We have like 68 more days till the election. But as a mother, as a citizen of the city, as an immigrant, I'm so proud to even have the chance to fight to represent you and to be on your side. And if people see this podcast and this Facebook Live and care about these issues, you know, reach out to all those groups that you mentioned, Taylor, you know, Casa Ruby, Wanda Alston, Smile, and many more wonderful organizations that are doing this great work. And if you want a leader who's going to fight to make sure all of DC has a voice and is respected and is included, then you can go to monicafordc.com, check me out, donate, volunteer, but most importantly, vote, vote, vote. Thank you. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And like I said, I am the richest person right now because I was able with universal energy to bring all these women, powerful women together. And I am so appreciative. And because I know that we touched on topics of healing and empowerment and how do we move from here. And I appreciate very much, Keisha, how you bring that organic, natural, let's work together healing atmosphere and the wisdom and strength of Consuela and Taylor. I want to also close this evening with a breathing exercise. So what I am going to ask you is to put your hands just on either side of your chair or whatever you are. Consuela, relax. And then just breathe with me, okay? Let's just inhale together. Hold it, 1, 2, 3, and exhale. Breathe in again. Hold it, 1, 2, 3, and exhale. And inhale again. We're all in this together, and only together we will prevail. 2, 3, and then we exhale.
I'm sorry, Larry.
I know, right? It's difficult sometimes to relax. That's why I didn't say meditation. I just said, let's breathe. One more time in. Hold it, and then release. Thank you, thank you, thank you again, ladies, for your time, your effort. And I say, ladies, in the nicest sense of the word, powerful women, encouraging women, motivators, and movers and shakers of this city. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all who were able to see us, to hear us. Yes, love for all of us. And to you too, have a lovely weekend. And please watch this wherever you are and share it. And Monica, for all this thing, go get ready and vote. Thank you.
Yes, Monica.
Good luck.
Yes, register to vote. Bye-bye. Have a good night. We'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.